Thank you very much for joining today's CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020 webinar. And it's a lunch and learn, a deep dive into the latest version of CorelDRAW Graphics Suite. We'll just give it half a minute or so for everyone to join this session today. Just a quick audio check. In the console window on the right hand side, if you could just show your hand, just to check that you can hear me okay. That's lovely, thank you very much for doing that. I can see many hands being raised. Just a reminder that you are in listen only mode today, but you can ask questions to us via the console window. I'll endeavour to answer those questions as the session goes on today. It shouldn't last more than an hour. And if I can answer them during the session or at the end, we'll certainly do that for you. And just a reminder that this session is being recorded, and as you've registered for the webinar, you will automatically receive the recording tomorrow in an email. So thank you very much for joining today. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this webinar. I'd like to introduce myself. That's Jo Levens. I'm based in the UK and I look after the channel marketing for Corel. I'm also delighted to introduce Mo Yogi, who's going to demonstrate some of the latest features today. And Mo is based in South Africa. So as I mentioned, this is a lunch and learn, and this will cover the latest version of CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020, which we released in March this year. We'll focus on some of the new draw and paint and productivity tools in this session. We've actually split the session in two. So the second part, which we'll cover off next month, will be a deeper dive on the photo paint and tools and enhancement tools for images and designs, because we can't cover everything off today. Just moving on to the next slide, Mo. So I'd like to just update you in respect to the COVID-19 situation. So in late March, we announced some changes on the CorelDRAW side to really help you as our customers working from home, particularly as you will be disconnected from colleagues and your clients right now. So in respect to that situation, we have a landing page there, which is CorelDRAW.com/COVID-19 update. And we've updated some of our policies, and I'll just quickly, briefly touch on each one there. So we're allowing all our users to install the product at home. It may be that you've got the product installed at an office or workspace, but we're allowing every one of our customers to reinstall the product using the same serial code that you will have received in an order confirmation invoice, so that will allow you to use the product at home. And hopefully by now you've received an email on that to be able to continue to work from home safely and securely. In addition, we're allowing our large enterprise or academic licensed customers, we're allowing those customers who have employees or students to use the product at home also. This is especially useful for students because we're seeing that a lot of students that would have been covered with something like an academic site license that we offer, requiring access to CorelDRAW to be able to continue to study at home. And again, we've sent out emails to our licensed clients and particularly the administrators that are covered with those licenses to enable them to allow their employees or students to continue to work from home. We're also allowing all of our licensed customers who have active maintenance the right to use the CorelDRAW.app Enterprise So CorelDRAW.app is included in the latest version of CorelDRAW Graphics Suite, but we're allowing our licensed customers with active maintenance the ability to use the .app enterprise version across their entire domain, and normally that license is on a one-to-one basis. And we've also opened up the collaboration features, so anyone using the latest version of CorelDRAW 2019 and 2020 will be able to use the advanced version of CorelDRAW.app to continue to work safely from home. So we really do hope that you are keeping safe and that these measures enable you to continue to work safely and remotely. And I do encourage you to go to that website there to find out more information on what we're doing. So as we move now into the deeper dive on the latest version of CorelDRAW Graphics Suite, we thought we would start with the collaboration tools, particularly as we've mentioned them there in our policy updates. So Mo, you're going to touch on and showcase the latest version of CorelDRAW.app to really showcase how people in a home environment can work with their collaborators and their co-workers to improve the whole workflow when it comes to getting feedback and improving designs. So I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Joe. I'm just checking in that everybody can hear me okay and the screen is nice and bright and visible and colorful. Yeah.
Yes, great.
Thank you. So thank you everybody from my end for joining us. Both Joe and I hope you're doing well despite this COVID-19 thing that we all have been dropped in on a global level. As a practicing designer and communications professional like yourselves, design and comms has been hit especially hard during this time, right? And I guess like you, I find it's a good time to learn, design, and create. So my intent together with Joe is to just kind of share with you possibilities in terms of us working remotely, whether we're using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or however we're collaborating with our clients. And the collaboration, I think, is, as Joe pointed out, is a phenomenal segue to kind of have this conversation. So let's kind of dial up the positivity meter, shall we? And just to make sure that everybody's seeing and hearing me okay, I'm going to jump into the chat pod for a minute. And if you could, in the chat pod, just kind of maybe tell us where you're from. I'll start. So I'll just say Jumbo from Joburg. Although Jumbo is Swahili and from Kenya, but that's okay. I guess it rhymes with Johannesburg. So say hello from wherever you are, and then we'll kind of jump straight in. So I'll go ahead and close the chat pod off and make sure that everybody can see okay again. So here I'm in CorelDRAW. We are going to be talking about collaboration, and kind of let's have a look at how this comes through. So Joe mentioned CorelDRAW.app. So essentially how this is going to work is the workflow is going to make collaboration between yourself and colleagues and clients a whole lot easier. So there's this thing called CorelDRAW.app you guys have been hearing a lot about, and as Joe indicated, this gets bundled to you as free as part of your license. And of course, what is emerging is this concept of Corel Cloud. So you'll see that I've got this collaboration document open just to kind of facilitate the conversation. And there's a whole host of things going on. There's these masks happening all over the place. And how did I do that? So in CorelDRAW now, you've got this ability to open content from the cloud. And why is this relevant? Of course, you are collaborating with clients or colleagues or reviewers and content providers in the cloud so that there is a syncing of content. And I'll share with you how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Corel to open a document from the cloud. It's already open. I just want to show you the experience. And of course, that's a document we're talking to. So as opposed to the 20 or 30 slide deck that we've created, I've just stripped out this one page to keep it nice and compact and easy to work with, right? So basically then just go ahead and click open. I'm going to click cancel because it's open already. And then what we'll go ahead and do is let me introduce you to a very important Docker in CorelDRAW, and that's the comments docker. So in the comments docker, let's go ahead and open it here on the side. I've already got it preloaded, and I'll hit return to comments, and I'll talk to those sign-in options in a moment. What you can see is that the comments dock is populated with comments. So I, as the designer, have asked reviewers some questions and given my inputs in terms of the design. And then, of course, what they can do is respond to it. And I think what is pretty important in terms of this workflow is that the content providers, that is the folks that are going to be reviewing the document, don't need any software at all. They don't need any licensing. It's absolutely free within this workflow. All they're going to need is an internet connection and a web browser, okay? So here are some of my comments that I'm going to go ahead and highlight. And the first one says, hey, I'm thinking of making this bigger. So you'll see that if I go ahead and just pick up my pick tool over here and I hover over it, you can see that, hey, I'm saying, there's my note. I'm thinking of making this larger. That is with bleed at the bottom. So I'm referring to this image over here. And then I've gone and drawn out a box and saying, about this size is what I'm thinking about. Okay. And of course, King Tut has responded by saying, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Right. So he's agreeing with me. And then Joe has gotten some comments as well, which we'll look at in a moment. And then, of course, the next comment I made is like, hey, do you mind if I take collaboration and rotate this 90 degrees? Just so that when we make it larger, there's a little bit more space. And of course, one of the reviewers have come back to us and said, hey, I think putting down a numbered list there is going to work a whole lot better. And then another comment from King again is collaboration simplified. So he'd like us to say collaboration simplified as opposed to just collaboration. Now, how did all of this come about? Well, what I did was, you'll see that there's this ability to save and share. And if you click on this, of course, what then happens is it takes it to Corel Cloud. Now, for purposes of the demo and kind of cutting out waiting time, I'm going to jump over to the web browser so we kind of share with you what that experience looks like. Okay, so here's the collaboration document. Again, this would be opened from Cloud. So what would happen is the reviewer would get an email from CorelDRAW.app saying, hey, you know, James, John, Jane, whoever has sent you a document for review. Click the link, and then that unique link would then open inside of the web browser within CorelDRAW.app. They need to install nothing. They don't pay anything additionally, which is just fantastic. From one designer to another, my advice to you is to try and compact your content as much as possible. You know, so if you've got very complex lenses and so on going on, and you've got things falling off the page, massive power clips, just try and simplify the workflow as far as possible, so that you don't have long wait times between yourself and your clients. Another thing I should point out, and Joe can probably talk to this more, but I just, you know, in the interest of just being totally transparent, is these collaboration features are available to subscription clients only, right? So if you are a perpetual license customer, and Joe, please feel free to jump in. My understanding is that you can purchase this as an additional plan. So if you have any questions around that, I'm sure we can field it before the session's over. Coming back to the experience in CorelDRAW.app, if I click on comments, you'll see that we've got the same comments that we had in CorelDRAW. So it's kind of seamless. Okay, so that's how the comments work. And if you would like to place a comment, then you could choose any one of these features. And of course, they're fairly straightforward. You know, you've got things like notes and arrows and highlighters and freehand drawing tools and so on. So, you know, I'll just kind of quickly show you how this works. So that's going out in red in 2 point. And what I would like to do is go ahead and simply just drag out something like that and change the color and the size. So let's just make this really thick. I'll make it 10 point. And of course, no saving necessary. So the save happens on the fly, right? So it just kind of goes ahead and does that on the fly. But let me go ahead and deliberately do a manual save here. And if I go over to CorelDRAW, what I'm going to now do is I'm going to go ahead and pull down a new version of the document. And I'm hoping the internet gods are going to be kind to us, but let's try. So I'll hit the open button on this. And that comment is still kind of in the ether, but it should pop through in a minute. Whilst that is happening, let me go ahead and show you how you could respond as a designer to the changes that are requested. So first thing we can do is go ahead and make this a little larger, right? The challenge, of course, is we've got these commenting things that are in our way. So of course, on the far right-hand side of the comments docker, we've got that little cogwheel that I shared with you earlier. If you were to click on that, you're able to say, listen, just hide the annotations for me for a minute. So now what we can go ahead and do is work as we normally would, right? So I'm going to say, okay, that's about, I don't want to cramp out the collaboration. That's about where I can take it to, and I'll probably take it to about there. So I have made the content larger. I am going to go ahead and drop it down, and I've got, from my guides, I've got the snap to options on, and I've got alignment guides on as well. So it's giving me real-time feedback to say that's in alignment with the word collaboration. I'm feeling it's a little too close to the word collaboration. I'm going to push that out a little bit, right? So that's done. What I can now do is I can go over here and I can click on these and say, okay, that's been resolved. Done. So that comment has been resolved. That comment has been resolved, and I'll show you in a minute where I quite like just doing them all at one go. So I go ahead and look at all the comments, make the changes, and then just resolve all, which I'll share with you in just a sec. Okay, so the next comment we would like to deal with is place a numbered list. Now, this is a new feature and quite a cool one. You're probably sitting there thinking, well, CorelDRAW numbered lists, you know, that was quite interesting in terms of the whole experience. Let me just shunt this GoToWebinar thing out of the way so I can get to the objects Docker or inspect every on Mac. And excuse me, in collaboration, you'll see that I've got some bulleted text over here. So this is just straightforward copy because I type really fast, right? In fact, I'm a two-finger type this, so I'm totally honest with you. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in over here, and you can see that we've just got some copy, you know, with some headlines, some body copy, and we'd like to turn this into a multi-level bulletin numbered list. So I've just gone and picked up the text tool. So I'll go ahead and select all of this, and up on the top here in my main Docker, you can see that we have, of course, we had bullets, but you know, controls were a little clunky. We had to go to properties and then adjust, you know, the hanging indent controls and so on. But now we have numbers too, so this works really well. So there we have numbers, and you'll see, of course, that you know, like it is looking at the return. So if I go to text and say show non-printing characters, you can see that, of course, it's picking up the returns and it's doing what it should be doing. But of course, we don't want the body copy to be numbered necessarily. So what I'd like to do in this case is I would like to make that a bullet. So you can see that's changed to a bullet, and that number is wrong. But it's pretty intelligent, because if I go in here and say, listen, I'd like to indent that, right, maybe twice, and then please make it a bullet, you'll see that it's smart enough to work out that, okay, this guy should be point number 2 in my numbered list. So let me do this guy quickly, right? So I'm just gonna go 1, 2, and a second time, please, and then I'd like it to be a bullet, and then I'll do that for a third time. So you can see that the numbers are working themselves out as we're doing this, 1, 2, and then we'll make that a bullet. There, I'm done and dusted, okay? So multi-level bullets with numbering and bullets interspersed inside of CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020. I think that's a really cool feature. Just by the way, there's tons of exploratory opportunities for you in terms of these bullets and numbering options by going to bullets and numbering over here. And you'll see that you can convey the information in your layouts on a fairly high level. So you've got level 1 bullets, those are my numbers. Level 2 bullets are numbers as well. Level 3 bullets are actually a glyph, and so on and so on and so on. And you can go ahead and tweak this to your heart's content. So thank you, Corel. This works really well. And of course, what I can now do is I can zoom back. I'm just going to hit F4 on my keyboard to show the entire screen. There's one more thing we needed to do here in terms of the final edit, and that is going to be jumping back to my comments Docker. So let me move this up so I can see my comments Docker. And King wanted us to say collaboration simplified. So let's do that very quickly. And then we're kind of done and dusted with this, right? So, sorry, I just created a new dialog box there. I think I may have. And let me jump back to object. I think that guy may be locked. And let's have a look here. He's locked. So let me unlock him quickly. And then we should be able to jump in again. You know, just double clicking with the pick tool takes you into the type tool, and then double clicking again, we kind of ready to rumble, right? So I'll just go ahead and say collaboration. We want simplified, right? So there we have it. That's of course way too large. So I'll just go ahead and select that. That's 44. Let's go half that. Let's go 24. Okay. And then finally, okay, that's looking great. Finally, all I want to do now is I want to indicate to my participants and my reviewers that you know, all the comments have been completed. Now, just before I do that, I just want to share with you quickly how this would work. If you were starting a fresh review, you would click on this little icon over here, and then you would click on the save and share option. And that's going to be basically pushing it out to users that you choose to send it to, right? But if I jump over to the web experience, we can do that via the web experience too. So you can see that comments have now been saved. And if I were to update in CorelDRAW, of course, that's going to give me the new comments option. And here you can see what we can do. We can go ahead and add reviewers. I need to add a reviewer here. So I'll just say John at Corel.com. I'm not sure if this is even a valid address. And what you can do here is you can say, look, I don't want this person to have any access to the file. So basically, they're not going to be able to access them. So that becomes a private link. So you can lock people out specifically. And then you have the ability to give people just viewing rights, reviewing rights, where they can add comments, and then you have approval rights. And here you can see Joe has approval rights. So what she could do for once all of the changes has been made, as the marketing director, is say, all right, okay, I approve this. And then of course the whole system then just kicks through, and then you can kind of get this prepped for print or web or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that's collaboration in a nutshell, right? With that, I'm going to go ahead and close this document. I'm not going to save it. Let's go back to this, and I'll head over to the next set of features and pass the microphone back to Jo so that she can introduce this to us.
Thanks, Mo. And just on the collaboration CorelDRAW.app availability, it is available automatically with a subscription, but it's also available with a perpetual license, whether that's a single user business license or the enterprise license with CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020.
Oh, that's great news.
Yes, so design tools. So this part of the webinar session, we're going to touch on some of the latest design tools that were included with the new release. And specifically, I think this section, Mo, you're going to touch on the art style effects. So that's using artificial intelligence to modify an image or stylize it whilst preserving the actual original image. I think you're also going to touch on the new feathering effects, which we built into the product, which creates a lovely transparency around the edges of an image to create that feathering and that blending. And two new additional features that we built in, which was the inner shadow and perspective effects, which gives a lovely sort of depth and reality to an image. So yeah, over to you, Mo.
Cool, thanks for that intro, Jo. So I was just kind of whipping through the slides as Jo was speaking, so you had visual context, right? So let's start with art style effects. So what we've basically done, Jo and I, is we've just broken them out into the individual styles that you can apply. And you can basically take images and convert them into instant drawings. And you'll find your favorites as I have mine. So like, I mean, I really like sunsets, waves, because of the dude, what's his name, Hokusai, that's him. And then pastel mosaic is another favorite for me. And sorry, I must spell that, it's pastel mosaic. I should say pastel mosaic again. My fault, didn't pick that up. So all of these images, by the way, are from a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com. So this person doesn't exist. It's an algorithm that actually kicks in, which I thought was quite interesting. And whilst we're talking artificial intelligence and machine learning, I guess with COVID-19, we're all trying to do good, right? So one of the things that I've done in terms of my own artistic expression, in terms of being able to do something, is I've set up a Facebook group called the COVID-19 Garden of Remembrance. And I'm offering anybody that has lost somebody dear to create a digital portrait of them free of charge. And I'll be using these artificial intelligence engines to do so. Just as a nice takeaway, so somebody that's lost somebody dear has something cool to take away. So let's kind of go ahead and see how this is going to express itself. And of course, I should mention that those of us that are familiar with or may have licensed Corel Painter Pro, this is inspired by the painting plugin that they had in the last version. Okay, so I'll jump out of full screen mode for a minute, and this dude doesn't exist either. It's a pretty cool technology, isn't it? Huh? And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to jump over to the Objects Docker or Inspector here on Mac. And I'm going to share with you how this works. This takes quite a bit of kind of grunt work in terms of processing power and RAM. So we've kind of pre-prepared the content, Joe and I, so we don't have to wait. But I would like to show you how you would go about doing this. Okay, so you can see that I've got this in a power clip. I'm going to hit edit. We go ahead and select that bitmap over there, as you can see, right? And of course, what we're then going to do is I'm going to head over to properties over here, head over to effects. And you'll notice that my effects was kind of highlighted in kind of like a sienna color. And the reason for that is what is pretty cool is if you'd like to know what the new features are really quickly, you go to help menu, highlight what's new, and you can choose the version. So I'm showing everything since version 2019. So you can see the plus, there's some new stuff in there. And then of course, if we head over to creative, you'll see that's where the art style effects is, and you can see it's a new feature, right? And of course, here you can go ahead and choose the type of style, etc., and you have the ability to do a preview and so on. I'm going to hit the cancel button, and the reason for that is, as I said to you, it does take some processing power, but it did that fairly quickly, so you may have seen kind of do a woodcut for us. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and hide the original to share with you some of the possibilities here. So let's hide that. This is the woodcut effect. It takes about a minute for it to kind of process. And I think it's pretty darn compelling. So advice to you is just push your contrast, create what we call an S-curve using the curves, which I'll share with you in a minute if we have time. But, just pop the contrast between highlights and shadows and you end up with really cool results. This is sunset, which is, again, really amazing. I'm keen to turn some of these into acrylic and oil paintings, using this as a starting point. And then, of course, the pastel mosaic. So those are our art style effects. I think they're pretty compelling. I'm hoping you like them, and please play with them, and perhaps share what you've come up with. Again, you can play with how much what's the word I'm looking for? How much of the effect is applied to the actual document. I tend to hover around the 50% mark, and I'd just like to share with you that very quickly. So you'll see that I've got the pastel mosaic selected here. And if I head over to the properties inspector, and you'll see that this is again inside of a power clip, so nothing's, the FX icon is not visible yet. But if I go and choose edit, you'll see that this art style is a live effect, which means that I can go ahead and switch it off altogether, switch it on, or edit it live, real time. So now it's basically processing that effect again, right? So again, if you've got fussy clients, just remember that these elements are live. They never go away, and you can go ahead and tweak it to your heart's content. So that's what I was talking about. You can see it does take a bit of processing power. But, I couldn't produce this in a minute or half a minute or whatever the case may be. Cool. So those are our art style effects. We've got a time to show, so I'm going to jump onto the next effect. And of course, feel free to ask questions in the chat bar, and we'll do our best to get through to them, right? So as Joe suggested, what we have now is we have vector feathering. So the way I'd like to kind of demonstrate this is, we've got this woodcut from the Corel content library. And I would like to create visual depth. So I would like the artisan to kind of pop forward, and I would like to push the backgrounds back, and we're going to basically be using blurs to do that. So this background was created to create that effect, was created using the impact tool which I'm quite sure a lot of you are familiar with from the previous version. And of course, that's too strong. So again, just like designating it, we want to push that back. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce a blur. So if I hit the edit menu, you can see it's in power clip mode. There's our impact. And if I head over to FX over here, you'll see that I've gone and applied a feather. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that feather and say, please show me the feather. So how was that done? I would go to Effects, click on the plus, go over to Blur, and then choose Feather. So that's a new feature that Joe, I beg your pardon, I alluded to earlier. And then, of course, excuse me, you have different possibilities in terms of how that feather expresses itself. And what I particularly like is this preview mode over here. So it gives you a before and after scenario, right? So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this because the feather is already applied. Let's hit finish and let's have a look at what that looks like. So you can see that you've got a fairly strong blur going on here. And I think it's too strong. So I'll go ahead and hit edit again. And I'll go ahead and pick up this blur. So you can see that it's a live effect. Head over to effects here. There's my feather. I hit the edit button on this. And we're going to pull this back. So we've deliberately kind of pushed it too far. So you can see that it's totally editable. Okay. And this is what's cool about these effects. They're all live. So if I hit finish now, you can see we've got this nice play. We're talking about the background that's falling behind the frame. We've got this nice play of fairly strong on the left-hand side, and as it moves to the right, it kind of softens itself out so that by the time it hits the text and the logo, it's fairly soft. And of course, like you, I'm thinking, okay, this background needs to be feathered as well, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So we've just separated these objects into various components, and let me share with you what that looks like. So on the objects panel, you'll see that we've got the frame background, and then of course we've got the artisan who's called Dude, and then we've got the carving here, which I think is kind of a little bit distracting. So we'll apply something else to that. So on the frame background, what we'd like to do is we'd also like to apply the feather effect. So I'm gonna head over to properties with that selected, and you can see there in effects. We're going to go ahead and do this real time, right? So we're going to go click on the plus, head over to blur, choose feather, and of course, what we want to do now is I'm going to choose this guy so you can see a before and after. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just go ahead and start pushing this back. That's starting to look quite compelling. Okay, I'm quite liking that. In fact, let me push it more. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So you can see what we're doing is we're pushing this back. It's almost, that's maybe too much. It's almost starting to kind of work with creating that separation by just pushing it back in terms of blur. Okay, so that's done. What we'll do next is let's tackle this carving. Okay, so I'll head over to the Objects Inspector once again, or Docker. See, I just went Mac on you guys there. I'll go ahead and choose carving here, and you'll see that I've got an effect that's hidden at this point in time. So I'm going to enable it so you can see what I've done there. What have I done there? So again, I can head over to Objects. So even if you're getting this job from somebody else, you know, with live effects, you can go ahead and work out. So the client might say, you know what, can you just push back that carving a little bit? It's still too strong for me. You can say, no problem. Now, you know, if a team member has worked on this, you can then just go ahead and see what they've done. So if I hand you this file, you can just go ahead and see what they've done. And here you can see I've gone ahead and I've pushed up the midtones a little bit, and I've pushed up the shadows. So I'm just going to go ahead and exaggerate this a little bit so you can see it better. And that's becoming less obvious. And then, of course, on top of this, we can go in and throw a blur if we wanted to. And you know how that works. So I'm not going to go ahead and show that again. But you can see what we've done now is we've pushed the artisan all the way forward. And we simply kind of separated them using the eraser tool in CorelDRAW. Next, Joe referred to the inner shadow. And of course, this Mr. Piggy comes from the Corel content library. So they're busy updating the library and making it more modern. So thank you for that. And let's go ahead and look at how, always great starting with a blank page, right? So let's go ahead and look at how we could execute or express something like that. So we're done with vector feather. Let me go ahead and close that off. And here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just select something. So you can see that that's the speech bubble, which is the same color as the background. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my interactive shadow over here. And you'll see that, you know, we'll be able to give it some nice three-dimensional depth. So that looks pretty cool right off the bat. Happy with that. You'll see that I have the word high right there. Again, not visible. So with the interactive shadow up at the top, I'd like to draw your attention to the inner shadow tool now. So if I go ahead and click on the inner shadow tool, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and drop in a shadow, and that looks a little too strong. So let's start with the strength, and let's take the strength down all the way to something like a 4 or 5, fairly low. That's looking way better, right? And then you'll see that we've got a feather there. The feather of 15 sounds good, and the transparency, let's go ahead and jump that up to maybe around about 70, 75 to make it a little bit stronger. So that's looking dope. Next, we'll go and choose Miss Piggy. Again, same color as, and we're going to go ahead and apply an inner shadow to that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and draw an inner shadow, again, too strong. And we'll make some changes here. So I'll start from the left. We've got an opacity of 50. I'm happy with that. I'm going to drop the feather down to around about 5 in this case, just to make it, and that's starting to look good, but looking a bit neon-y. So I'll head over to the amount or the intensity of that shadow by way of adjusting the width. And I'll drop that to like maybe a 1 or a 2 because it's quite fine. And it's looking really, really nice. So that's how inner shadow kind of expresses itself. Of course, you know, the enhancements have not just come through to these types of tools, but it's come through to something like perspective as well. So this is the end result, and let Joe and I show you how that expresses itself once again. So I'll start with the curtain right, which is currently hidden, and make that visible. And then I'll make curtain left visible as well. And then I'll just hit F4 so we can see the entire screen. And you can see I've just positioned 2 really interesting patterns out on the canvas, and we're ready to kind of make amendments to them. So what's the first thing that we did? The first thing we did is we changed the transparency of them, right? So what we'll do here is I'll head over to my properties Docker, head over to the transparency tab with both of them selected simultaneously, by the way. We'll change that to add. Okay. And then what we'll do is we're going to drop its opacity as well. So I'll choose the interactive transparency tool here. You can see there's my add. Let me just go ahead and do a blanket opacity here. And that's sitting at 70%. Yeah, that looks great. So it's not garish and ugly. And you know, it's just a little bit more acceptable and a little bit more muted and nuanced. So you'll see that the curtain is falling at an angle here, and that's where I'm going to engage the perspective. So I'll go ahead and select this object, and then from the effects, I believe it's objects menu rather, I'll go ahead and choose add perspective. And I'll go ahead and pick up that corner and just align it so that it fits better with the angle of the curtains, right? So say something like that. Yeah, happy with that. So I'll go ahead and pick up my pick tool, and I'll head over to the objects Docker once again, guys. And what we've done here is we've just created 2 power clip containers to hold our curtains. So we're almost done with that. So I'll go ahead and select this guy. I'll right click on him, just power clip inside. You're going in there. Get rid of the full color for that. So let me just move this guy out of the way and say no full color on that. So he's fallen into place. Let's select her. Will be gender neutral, of course. Right click on her, power clip inside, and we'll jump into that. Again, we'll get rid of her full color, and there you have it. So those are the features that Joe just outlined in terms of the design tools. I'm going to pass the microphone back to her so she can introduce the next subset of tools that we're going to be talking about. Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Mo. So next part of the webinar is just to touch on some of the new image editing tools that we built into CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020. Mo's going to touch upon the new Bitmap effects lens. Again, this uses AI technology to apply bitmap effects as lenses. So I understand that sort of moving or manipulating the lens with this tool gives you the freedom to position the bitmap effect and give sort of real precision and depth to your design. The other new tools that we built in that we're going to touch upon, one of them is the perspective and radial blur tool. And again, with that tool, that effect, it gives you a sort of smoother and more responsive effect to your designs, more lighting, which you can see there in that lovely image. We're also going to touch upon PowerTrace. So PowerTrace has been improved and enhanced in CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2020. We feel this tool is amazing to give the best bitmap to vector trace results yet, and Mo's going to touch upon that in the demo. And a couple of other extra new things, the Jpeg artifact removal tool and upsampling image tool, which he's just going to touch upon in the demo. So over to you, Mo.
Thanks so much for that, Joe. Okay, so let's, we've got a ton of stuff still to cover, and you'll see why we all need to break this out into 2 sessions. Okay, so we are in 1440, at least we've got 40 minutes. Joe, any questions coming through at this point in time that you think we might need to address, or are we still okay?
Is the, well, you're going to touch on the perspective effect tool in a minute, but one of the questions, is it for raster objects, vector, or both?
Yeah, so we just had a look at the perspective here.
Oh, sorry,
the curtains.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, it's related to the perspective effect tool. Yeah, is that for raster objects, vector, or both?
Both, actually. So you can apply them. We apply them to a raster object here, which happens to be this animal print, right? But you can apply them. You're probably aware that you could do this with vector objects for quite a while in Corel. But since the last version, we can now do it with raster objects as well. Great question, by the way, so thank you for it. And of course, they just made it a little bit more responsive. So, you know, it was a little laggy in 2019, the first time it made its appearance in the tool. And I think the product team put quite a bit of effort into making it just as seamless as possible. So the answer is both. Nice question. Anything else, Joe, or should we continue?
No, nothing yet.
Okay.
No.
Good. All right. So in terms of image editing, I should say, let me trip over my toes successfully here. What Joe was referring to is these lens effects. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can create something like this. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just go ahead and draw a straightforward ellipse over his face. I'm going to hold in control, say more or less that. Okay, I'll move over to the pick tool. And I'm going to get rid of the fill and stroke. So it's got no outline, no fill, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and head over to the lens docker. So of course, from the lens docker, there's a whole host of new possibilities. We're going to head for magnify. And you can see that that's magnified. And what I'll then do is I have the ability, remember this is all live, so I have the ability to just go ahead and make my circle bigger, as it were, so I get a better fit and a better position. Say something like that. Once I've got that position, remember that we want to move it off to the left bottom of our screen. So I'll go ahead and choose frozen, right? So that's freezing that moment in time, which allows me to then move this over. And that's fairly straightforward. What we could then do is we can start doing other wacky things. So for starters, I'll go ahead and give it a fat outline to something like maybe even flatter than that. That's 10. So let's go like 16 point there. I'll go ahead and make that white by right-clicking on the white swatch over here. And then what we'll go ahead and do, you guys, is I'll head over to properties again. And from the effects submenu, I'm so grateful for this because it's bringing a whole host of like vector effects into, rather raster effects, I should say, and image effects that you would typically mean that you'd need to jump into an image editor. We can do that directly in Corel. And the wicked thing is it's non-destructive and live. So that's pretty awesome, right? Let's head over to effects. I'm going to head over to color transform in this case, and let's head over to psychedelic. And you can see that you can go ahead and choose different psychedelic levels here. You know, go as crazy as you want. I'm just going to mute that back a little bit. And that looks pretty dope with neon look. And that's basically how that is created. Finally, what I'll go ahead and do here is I'll just go ahead and apply blanket transparency. Head over to the transparency options where it's sitting at 50%. Let's drop that to like 20. So we've got this great play between the background and the line and everything else that goes with that. So that's essentially the bitmap lenses that we're talking about. They're live. And of course, in the next edition of our Lunch to Learns, as Joe indicated, we will touch on how you could manipulate this, because there were a lot of requests for this to happen in Corel Painter as well. Okay. So moving on then. Let's go ahead and look at Radial Blur. So as Joe indicated, you know, this is a beautiful illustration. Let me give a shout out to the artist in this here. So that's done by Conrad Jans. Brilliant piece of work. Well done, Conrad. In fact, all of the artwork you're seeing is courtesy of artists. So we'd like to showcase artists that are submitting work to the CorelDRAW annual competition. Encourage you to do the same. So your artwork, you know, it's a very kind of global community of CorelDRAW professionals that participate in this. So I encourage you to do the same. And there's a ton of cool prizes you can win on top of that, right? So that said, let's go ahead and look at this. We've spoken to perspective. Let's now talk to radial, as Joe had indicated. Now, what I'd like to do here is I'd like to just draw focus to the ship, which is sitting in center, and I'd like to just kind of almost create like a depth of field kind of effect here. So we're pushing back the waves and the ships in the background. So we kind of put emphasis on the foreground. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We're going to head over to the objects. We're going to make sure that we select the bitmap, which we have. We're then going to head over to properties over here. I'm going to click on FX. I'm going to click on the plus. I'm going to head over to blur. As you guessed, we've spoken about feather. Here we're going to head over to radial blur. Click on that. I love this tool, which gives me the before and after. And of course, you've got the preview happening in real time over there as well. And then you've got like a 5. That's looking really dope. And I think I'll maybe drop that down to maybe a 2. So I have less of, and what you'll see happening is if I switch this preview on and off, you can see we've just created lots more emphasis with a subtle radial blur on our main focal depth or focal point, right? And Joe and I have hosted a seminar on talking to the various principles of design. So if you haven't seen that one, most definitely do check it out. Power trace, one that I know you guys have been dying and patiently waiting for. And of course, let's talk to power trace. It's been hugely enhanced. I call this the Corel Clever Engine or Corel Smart Engine. It's an AI-assisted feature that delivers superior results. Now, you guys are familiar with Corel Power Trace, and you're saying, well, hey, dude, that's not really a new feature. You guys are not really, not playing nice. Well, let me share with you in terms of what is going to really enhance our work, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in here. The left-hand side before, left-hand side of this white line or divider before, right-hand side after. And right now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, there's no difference. And you're absolutely right. So there's the before and after is exactly as is, right? So there's no changes. And of course, with the artificial intelligence engine, I dare say that this does take about 1.5 minutes for each render, okay? And of course, because we're limited to time here, I'm going to go ahead and just jump through and show you the possibilities without us having to wait 1.5 minutes each time. Right, so here's the original on the left, and this is what we have on the right. So it's exactly the same image. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and shunt over to where we can see Jpeg Art Effects a little bit more. So you'll see here on the wheel arch trim, for example, we're starting to get these jaggies courtesy of Jpeg. So Jpeg is an awesome compression engine, but what it does with compression is it creates these Jpeg artifacts, which are problematic. And what Corel have done is I'm going to go ahead and show you how it's done, but we're not going to do it because we don't have the time, right? It's a waste of time, frankly, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So basically, I've got that element selected. You head over to the bitmaps menu, and from there, you'll see we've got this thing called Remove Jpeg Artifacts. That's all you need to do. You'll click on it, and what it does is it does this. So I'll just switch it on and off so you can see. So that's without Jpeg artifact removal, and that's with Jpeg artifact removal. It's done a good job in kind of cleaning out all of those jaggies and disparate colors that, the artifacting that comes with Jpeg. Cool. Then, of course, what we have is Power Trace. Now, you guys are familiar with Power Trace. So I'm going to talk you through the new features in Power Trace. Again, we're not going to waste your time by having it run for 1.5 minutes, as I said. So you guys are familiar with all of this. So trace bitmap, I'm going to go ahead and choose outline trace. In this case, we're going to choose clip art. And of course, just running through this, we're going to say none for background. these settings, you'd probably take your detail all the way to maximum for this result. Head over to adjustments, and this is what is new. You can choose to remove JPEG artifacts, the stuff I just showed you a minute ago, and you can choose what type of result you want. In this case, we want an illustration, right? You can see in this case, it's going to take 43 seconds. And once it's done with that, it will have to render that, which will probably be another 30 odd seconds. So I'm going to hit cancel on that and show you the final result. And that's our trace, right? So here you can see I've got a zoom in value of almost 1,000%. Okay, let's go ahead and have a look at it at 100%. 100% is proof to the pudding. Okay, and there you can see you've got a very compelling power trace. Okay, so we'll do the power trace real time and let it run through and let the engine do its thing on something a little simpler. This will take about 1.5 minutes, as I said. But you can see a superb result in terms of the actual trace. And it's giving you the minimum number of nodes. Let me just pan around here. There's the before and after. So you can see it's really compelling in terms of what it's delivering. Now, that's great, if you're doing things like signage, or you're doing vehicle wrapping, or you're doing, large format printing and so on. Oftentimes what you and I have to deal with is kind of, hey, dude, here's the logo. It's a JPEG or a PNG embedded inside of a Word document. You're the guy, I need billboards, I need pull-up banners, I need all sorts of stuff, make it happen. Right, and then of course you and I spend a long time having to redraw this. And you and I both have had experience with juniors kind of using the power trace method and so on in the past. And of course, our obvious go-to is redraw this by hand using the Bezier tools, right? So spend half the day doing this and then you're going to get the best result. That's until now, I have to admit. I haven't been altogether convinced because, the engine wasn't quite there yet. But now I think what we have is we have something that's fairly compelling. So what I'm going to start with is I'm just going to drop down a background. And then what we'll do is we'll make this dude available. So a much smaller version of the logo. So you can see there's no smoke and mirrors here. And then I'm going to try not to use keyboard shortcuts as far as I can. There's our logo. If I go ahead and zoom in here, just to share with you that you can see it's fuzzy and it's, no smoke and mirrors. So it's the real deal. So let's go ahead and zoom into this once again. I'll go ahead and select this guy. And we'll just run through all of the components that you are familiar with and then some. Right, so we'll go ahead and choose Trace Bitmap, Outline Trace. I'm going to head over, in this case, of course, to Detail Logo. That makes sense, right? We've got the preview before and after. There's a couple of things I want to kind of tag here. So here, I want to specify the background color. So it will go ahead and pick up the background color. I can go ahead and specify that color, or I can just say automatically. Right, so pick up background color, let it do it automatically. I'll head over to adjustments, remove JPEG artifact. Remember, that's important for us. And in this case, we're going to choose illustration. So now it's going in estimating time, 8 seconds, 7, 6. So it's counting down over here. So what it's now done is it's completed this, and it's done a fairly decent job, I think. And we'll look at the nodes in a minute, especially for those of us that are in production, pre-press, and output. Let's just kind of zoot in here. I'm pretty sure that you're going to be okay with that too. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit the OK button. This is looking darn dope. And in fact, let me do one more thing. Where's my detailed slider? I'm going to take that all the way to the right. Good. Let's go ahead and hit OK on this. So what I could have done is deleted the original. But what I'll do is I'll just move over the original so we can do a comparative. There's the before, there's the after. Of course, we don't want the white sitting in all of these bold and so on. And so I'll head over to the Objects panel over here. Pop that open for a minute. And you can see it's created a group of. I typically would redo that. So you can see that that's the nose. It's kind of visually intelligent. There we go. So that's picking up the O in the letter G. I'm going to delete that. Yep, don't want that. Same for that. And of course, there in the top of the ear, I don't want that either. And I don't want it in the letters D and neither in that D. So that's pretty much done. I'll go ahead and zoom into this so we can have a look at, the quality of this trace, right? And with that selected, let me jump into wireframe mode for a minute here. And you can see that we've got a fairly compelling result, particularly when I go ahead and select the node elements, okay? That's really looking strong. So that's something that I'll be using moving forward, most definitely. And that gives us a good sense. Let me jump into enhanced mode once again. That gives us a good sense of, real world tools that are going to make a difference. So there's the before and the after, side by side. And I'm zooming in so you can see. And this now we can blow up to whatever size and use this with great confidence, I think is the word I'm looking for. All right, we're going to get through one more thing, I think, unless there are any questions, Joe, that you think are kind of screaming urgent. And we can get through one more thing. In fact, maybe.
Yeah, there's actually 2 or 3 questions, but I think I'm going to save them to the end, Mo, because we can answer them at the end.
Okay, so I think maybe what we should do, Joe, instead of rushing this, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if everyone's happy, we can tag on some more, just 5 minutes at the end to answer the questions.
Oh, okay. Or I was going to suggest, yeah, we don't need to rush things. We can always just roll over what we haven't covered in this webinar into installment 2.
Good plan. I mean, do you just want to quickly cover off typography, or should we cover that in installment 2?
Okay, so I'll do a quick overview so folks can play with typography, and then we can do a deeper conversation just to do it justice, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so yeah, okay, let me do that. Let's go with your suggestion on typography. So we'll talk to, sorry, not that. I meant to hit F4, not Alt F4, which is close the document. So we'll talk to upsampling and these possibilities in our next installment. So definitely join us for that in May. Typography has gotten a huge boost. And to do this justice, I probably need about 5 or 10 minutes to talk through this properly. But what I'd like to say to you is I want to talk to you very quickly about variable fonts, so you can go ahead and play with this, okay? Now, what Corel has done here is, if we look at this artwork and I jump over to the Objects Inspector or Docker, you'll see that I've got a group of objects called caps, inside of which I've got 2 artistic text elements. I'm using a typeface called Amstelvar, which is, of course, a variable font. So what does a variable font mean? It means I can change properties of that font in line with CSS possibilities. So it can be cross-platform, not only cross-platform, but cross-discipline. I can go from print to web to video without making a very chunky and heavy file. Remember, when you go from bold to light or from light to regular, you're creating different weights, and that needs to be embedded inside of a file, which means a bigger file size, right? This is not the case because it's all built into the same font. I'm going to use the grading option here to show this specific element, and we will reopen this conversation in our installment 2 because I think it needs more time, but we don't want to disrespect your time today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the A here. It can be done from the control panel up at the top as well. And I'm using this in a group, and you'll see that we've got a whole host of possibilities. And Joe and I will unpack this for you in the next installment. But I'd like to show you grading. Grad stands for grading. So the terminology that you're seeing here are the CSS components, CSS compliant components. So you can create content here, especially if you're doing visualizations for print and web and other aspects like video, then it can be done. So when I adjust grad, it's like going bold or light, but observe what's happening, you guys. We're not, typically when you make something bold or light, the amount of space it uses changes. Here, it's maintaining the amount of space, right? But it's giving us bold or light. Do you see that? So the space stays the same. And this is a Berlo font. Brilliant job that he's done, I have to say. This is an open source font. You can go and download it from the Google Type Library at GitHub. And of course, if you can't find it, just reach out to Joe or myself and we'll happily point you in that direction. So this deserves a lot more time, and I'd like to give it that time. So with your permission, Joe, I'd like to then perhaps open the floor to questions.
Yes, thanks, Mo. Yeah, so we will push this into part 2, and you'll get an invite to the next session, next deep dive session that will be hosted in May. Just whilst you're there, just trying to cover off a couple of the questions. So one question, does CorelDRAW have brush effects, really good brush effects for paintings? I was just going to touch on Corel Painter, and if you're welcome to go to painterartist.com and download a trial of Corel Painter. I mean, that product is a complete digital art toolbox. It's used by some of the leading art design agencies, the film industry to storyboard films. It has the most amazing tool set of art and painting and brush effects that you could ever want. So I really encourage you to go to painterartist.com and download a copy of Painter. Mo, did you want to talk about painting or brush effects in CorelDRAW?
Yes. So if I can dovetail of what Joe said, and perhaps Joe, we could host a webinar if there's interest from the community here on Painter. It's a really awesome product, I have to say. So you know, it's an awesome tool. It works extremely well. It's Mac and PC, of course. I'd like to say that there is a steep learning curve to Painter. It's a wonderful product, but it does come with a steep learning curve. So you'll need to be patient, and you'll need to work through quite a few tutorials. That said, with your permission, Joe, do we have a commitment maybe for a Painter workshop at some point? Just twisting your arm here on behalf of the attendees. Yeah?
We will definitely put one on. Yeah, in the next 2 to 3 months.
And then to answer your question around, sorry, you were going to say?
No, I said we'll definitely put a Painter session on in the next 2 to 3 months.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. She's so kind, isn't she, guys? Right. So thanks for that, Joe. With regards to drawing and painting tools inside of CorelDRAW, the answer is yes. So of course, you could use the neural engine that I just showed you, but I use these tools to draw inside of CorelDRAW. There's the artistic media tool, the live sketch tool, and these are really, really amazing. And I do some of my illustration work inside of CorelDRAW because I want to keep them vector. And I think perhaps that's where the question is coming from. So I'm doing a series called Legends in Letters at the moment. And I like to work with ballpoint pen in the real world. So when I'm doing analog drawings, I work with ballpoint pen. And these tools, as well as the freehand drawing tool, gives me that ability. So what I'll do is I'll make a note of this, drawing tools. And with your permission then, Joey, we'll just add that, while it's not a new feature, we'll just add that to installment 2, which we'll do in May, if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And just a couple of last questions. Not sure if you know this, Mo, but is there any option for measuring the length of curved lines within designs with CorelDRAW?
So the measure of curved lines end to end, yes. So that can be done by way of the measure tools here. Again, I'm making a note of this, and we can show that in the next version if you're okay with this. Joe, measure. And then, of course, if you're talking about arcs on ellipses, you can do that very effectively by choosing the arc tool. So instead of taking an object, an ellipse and breaking it apart, if I'm understanding the question correctly, that is, instead of just selecting an ellipse and breaking it and then kind of getting rid of the nodes you don't want, you could definitely use the arc tool, and that would give you dimensions as well. So those are 2 possibilities there. So again, I'm hoping I'm answering the question fully. If I'm not, we can always kind of share with you that in the next installment of Draw. Nice question. Thank you.
And lastly, when the customer uses PowerTrace and selects Remove Original, it doesn't remove it. So is there any guidance there as to why that might be happening?
Sorry, you broke up. What I got was that we have a client that's using PowerTrace, and they're saying remove original, and it's not working.
Yes, it doesn't always remove the original image. Why could that be?
Okay, so that's a technical question, and there could be a couple of possibilities there. So without doing guesswork, I mean, the first question I would ask is, are you using the most up-to-date version of CorelDRAW? So version becomes important. Do we have an indication of what version the viewer or the attendee might be using?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, so I would check without knowing the facts, and I'm not trying to fob you off. So, you know, we work on the process of elimination when we do have challenges. I'm just going to go ahead and do it on this to show you that it does actually work. And I'm putting my wrap on the line here. So I'm just doing a straightforward trace. It's going to take 8 seconds. There you can see it does work, right? So a couple of possibilities. I would want to know what version. So if you're using an older version, I would just make sure that you've got the latest update for that version, and you're going to do that through the help menu and choose updates. Right? You can see in CorelDRAW 2020 it does work, and I've used 2019, 2018 as well, and it does work. So a possibility might be that the object might be locked. I would check that, make sure that you have the latest updates, and definitely does work in CorelDRAW 2020 as we've just seen. So those are the ones that I would check, but I mean, there might be more variables in terms of the individual client need. So my recommendation would be to reach out to the Corel Support team if these suggestions that I've made to you do not work. And then Joe, of course, you could point out, I'm not sure what the Corel Support link would be online. Do you know off the top of your head?
No, but we can post it in the email that goes out with the recording. So we'll do that.
They're fairly responsive, and I think there are helplines for region as well that you can call into. Am I right?
There is. So we'll put the link on the email. Yeah.
Superb. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you, everyone. There's lots of questions. What we're going to do is download the questions after the session, and we'll come back to you individually as well with some responses. And like Mo said, the second session will cover a deeper dive into the things that we missed today, plus some of the latest features and tools with photo paint and enhancing your images and design. So look out for that webinar. Thank you very much for joining today. We really appreciate you spending time to listen to this webinar today. Thank you on behalf of myself and Mo, and we hope to see you at the next session. Thanks very much. Bye.